Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Outlook. I'm Luke Anthony, and this week I spoke to Sadia Azmat, who is a British Asian stand-up comedian, writer and podcaster from East London. Her comedy delves deep into her experience of the UK job market, how working in a call centre eliminated that visual discrimination, and also speaks about the cultural issues that this country faces right now. But I can't forget, she has also broken ground with her amazing podcast, No Country for Young Women, which is on BBC Sounds with Monty Onanuga. They speak graphically and honestly about life, love and work in a white man's world. It's really worth listening to. I learn a hell of a lot. But before you do that, please welcome to the show, Sadia Azmat. So how did BBC Sounds come about? Because you started off doing your questions you frequently asked with BBC iPlayer. Mm-hmm. And that sort of bred from that, did it?
Yeah, well done. So you've done your research.
I've skipped like 4 questions as well.
Oh, well, we can always come back to them. So I had a little short, which is still on, called Things I'm Asked as a British Muslim. And a few years later, I was really lucky. Just BBC reached out and said, do you have any ideas for a podcast? And I did. I'm really interested. I think my favorite types of comedians are Americans, and I think they are really good and comfortable talking about issues of race, and they're really open about relationships as well. But so those are my 2 favorite topics. So I pitched the idea for No Country to them, went through a whole bunch of titles. Like my initial title was Race Whores. Yeah, I really wanted it to be called that.
I listened to your first 4-minute preview of it straight away, and you go through quite a few names.
I'm glad they let us have that. Oh, thank you. So anyway, then we came up with No Country, which is basically the theme of it is if you don't always feel like the place you're from. So obviously I'm from Britain, but sometimes people will question that just based on how I look. And this series, which is series 3, which has started this week on Tuesday, is more about, so we've kind of touched on those topics. It's now about what is home and how can you make yourself feel at home. So if you are away or if you're in a place that you didn't always feel comfortable, like how can you bring home wherever you go? So we've had some big guests this series. We've got Rose McGowan.
Oh, wow.
Talking about Me Too a little bit, and talking about her different artistic endeavours. She's doing theatre for the first time, or stage for the first time, I should say. We met Ainsley Harriott.
Oh, brilliant.
So he talked about food and how London is home for him. And we've had amazing people like Phil Wang. We did a couple of episodes at Edinburgh. So Phil Wang and Phoebe Robinson, part of 2 Dope Queens. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I started listening to the podcast and when... Wow, I listen to the lot in one go, like I was at work, and I just when I'm at work, I design, I do CAD.
So CAD stands for design, right?
Yeah. So
what is it again?
CAD, so computer aided design. Excuse me, I can lose my job.
So
just
if I need, no, you won't. If I need any designs, I come to you, right?
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Is it for houses or what do you?
I'm available for bookings. That as a comedian as well.
Exactly.
We're doing telecoms at the moment, so I'm doing all the rollout for 5G.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's...
Is that going to fry people's brains, as people have been saying online?
Yeah, it's gone over like microwave levels now. So if you jam... Okay, don't do this, by the way. But if you jam like the button in a microwave and then shut your head in it, but don't fully shut it and turn it on, then that's basically what you do if you're right in the middle of, in that like exclusion zone, yeah.
Holy
that's the equivalent
shit.
If you're standing right next to it.
So
just to get, so this is not about comedy, and this is about my day job, which is a great job. It's just a very sort of mindless job, and once you get your head in, you just do it. So listen to podcasts, to bring back to my point, is like just a natural thing. Like I don't have to speak to anyone to do it. I just listen. You guys are my friends when I'm listening to podcasts, and so I'm there just cracking up all day long about what people are saying. And particularly like your podcast because it's something that, as a straight white male, that you completely and utterly defame on the podcast many times. I think it's really important that me as a straight white male does listen to those things because it educates you. Because even though I consider myself as woke, and I hate that term.
Yeah, I like that you said that. Very good.
I hate that term. Absolutely hate the term. It's become hack and it's used too much in media now. But if that is the term we're using, then I identify as that.
Nice.
But I know that there's still that passive kind of not knowing, that ignorance that I don't quite understand. And I think the important thing from gathering from your podcast is that really is not that we want you to understand. We want you to understand that you don't understand. And it's kind of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I tweeted this recently. I'm really dodgy on Twitter, but I guess you know, when you're naked in bed and, you know, why not? You're very uninhibited. And I mean, I will say,
oh God,
I will say on your podcast that, listen, to be honest with you, straight white men have been my biggest allies. My agent's white, my directors have been white, people who've given me opportunities or interested, or even gigs, or even lifts to gigs, or even guest spots on podcasts. Mostly, do you know what I mean? So I just think it's not even their fault. It's just society has kind of like doesn't always represent underrepresented audiences. So for me, what No Country does is provide art for everybody. So we have had you know, the typical Radio 4 listenerships, like we've had emails from you know, middle-aged white men, and we've had such a diverse listenership from around the world. So I didn't expect it, but half of our listeners are from outside the UK, places like Zambia, Dubai. And I really think that we have so much more in common than we have apart. And I appreciate white people's art. I love Bill Burr, you know, I love loads of comedians of, you know, and I think as us having been on the circuit, on the stand-up scene, I don't really begrudge the success of the white man, to be honest with you, because they're the majority of the people in the open mics or the regular mics that they're hustling. They've paid their dues. But I think before I really got into that, I didn't see it. So you just see the end result of them being super successful, and you're kind of a bit, not aggrieved, but you know, you're just like, that's lucky for them. But then working on the grassroots up, and it is changing. There's so many more females now and stuff like that. But like, I don't begrudge anybody, because I know how hard it is to make it in this industry. So if somebody's been able to do that, then well done. You know, give credit where it's due, because it's not easy to what we do. You know that there's like a minimum 7 to 10 spell of kind of just really grinding it out and hustling, and then, you know, opportunities. A lot of it is luck, a lot of it is knowing the right people, necessarily than over talent in some cases, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, there's people that aren't very good at famous, you know. It's one of those things. We're not going to be libelous on this podcast. I'm not with the BBC, but BBC wants another podcast. I'll happily come up with a really great idea.
Yes.
No Country for Young Men or something.
Which things seem to be shaping out. Seems to be the case.
So legal to be a white man.
I'm looking forward to watching Joker, the movie.
Yeah.
Because I read something recently about how it's caused so much debate already before it's even out between like, I think because of incels and the amount of, you know, what can we say, white terrorism? I don't know. But I'm still going to watch it. And I think it's weird that people, it shows that how bad things are if people are already arguing about something without any basis. I think that kind of is context, not it's not a good place to be, because film is art, and film should be speaking about things that might be quote unquote, I don't know if uncomfortable is the right word, but it should be provocative, it should be provoking, and there should be a place for it. And I don't want to be in a place where we're censoring art. No,
absolutely not. And I think that the main thing that I think you achieve with Monty Onanuga with the BBC Sounds app and you know, No Country for Young Women is the fact that, you know, it's just another platform for you to speak, and it's an alternative view. It is the minority view, and you have that platform, and I think you're reaching out, and it's great. And I think that it's those conversations, those difficult and uncomfortable conversations, that we need to break down in society and in the UK, because like I've seen your stand-up stuff and it's amazing and stuff, but comedy, like I said to you on Facebook, like great comedy is great comedy, and it will be great to get to a point where people can laugh about these sensitive subjects that you talk about.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. I think there is still some, like, I just come back from the Fringe, and, you know, most of the audiences were amazing and supportive, but I did get a tweet exactly the same saying, I have to look at myself to why I didn't feel comfortable with laughing. Some of the things that were really funny jokes, which was an ally, a white, lovely lady. And, you know, we will get to that place. I think with the podcast, what it shows is that me and Monty aren't really woke, and sometimes things change. Like you might feel really staunchly about something one day and then be really relaxed the next day. In some ways, you could say it's a bit fluid. I find it difficult. The difficulty I find is I'm not every Muslim, okay, or every Asian female, whatever. So you can't then take on their problems if you don't want to be seen as a collective. So it feels as though, some people are upset about the historical things that happen to their groups. But to be honest, I don't see myself as a victim of slavery. So either I want to represent myself and therefore I can only speak on my true lived experiences, or I'm every woman and therefore I'm never going to be happy because I'm always going to have a problem with something going on. So I think it's about compromise. It's about understanding, which you listening and being on board is really helpful. Nobody asks you of it. So it is big of you. You don't have to take time out of your day. There's a plethora of podcasts available. So I am grateful. I don't think being entitled is the right look, because as an oppressed I was going to say something that I didn't mean, but like when ISIS came out, I found it really difficult, and I found Muslims being oppressed by the media and stuff like that. But I think there's always, be careful who you oppress, because we're all part of humanity. And then if you kind of restrict the laws and the rights of one group, sadly that tends to become
alienate people.
It happens to everybody basically. Now I'm seeing it with I'm a little bit with white guys, a little bit maybe.
The resurgence of the far right wing, yeah.
So it's like that word, contagion. That's the word I was looking at. I was trying to think of that movie with that weird poster, but it's contagion. So just be kind to people and try and put good vibes out there. And then listen, like someday it's you and you're being oversensitive, and someday it's the world and things need to be put to right and stuff like that. But we can all have conversations. You're never going to agree with everybody's point of view.
No, exactly. And if you try to get on board with everybody, then you'll just please no one. And like another great podcast that is out there is Insane in the Membrane.
Oh, okay.
By Rich Wilson.
Okay.
Fantastic comedian. He talks about like men's mental health, and he often speaks about it quite graphically and things, and speaks about how he comes from an era when he had all these bad attitudes, or
he wasn't masculine to have a mental health
exactly,
problem.
And so but then speaks about it on the podcast. But it just shows, like, even when I started doing Outlook on Life with a couple of my friends, some of the things I said in like the first and second episode, like you have to, I went back and checked myself just to check that I didn't say anything like libelous, because I in that time I've grown as a person. Do you worry that some of the things you said in the early episodes that you'll be pulled up on later when as your career has, like,
if I'm honest with you, I'm more concerned about Twitter.
What have you done?
I don't know, but like the way that things are going for other acts, it's a little bit concerning if something from 10 years. But I did do a bit of a deep dive, and I think there's only so much they go back, I think. So first of all, people who go back and look for dirt are the lowest scum on earth. Let's be honest, because it's different if it's now than if you're looking for shit. Like that's just fucking terrible behavior. I think I'm so lucky with the podcast because the producer, we're so privileged to have a producer, and they do safeguard us, because there's been a few things that have literally not made it.
Oh, really?
I say a few probably regularly from me. So I'm not too concerned. I think for me, right, I think probably the same with you. When you're doing a podcast, you don't want to just talk and waffle for the sake of it. Although, obviously, if you're around friends or whatever, it is funny. But for me, I like to mean what I say. So even if my stance changes, looking back, like if something I said in the first few episodes wasn't right, I still might be able to understand where I was at that point. But I don't know. What do you think? I think people don't change that often.
No.
I think you are what you are.
I think so. And you revert back to like your equilibrium, don't you? Always. Like it's no matter how much you try and change it, like, or someone calls you out on something and you try and adapt the way you think, like you still have those thoughts. Those thoughts just often don't make it outwardly. That's all.
Yeah, I think with comedy, good comedy is truth. So if you was trying to be honest, or if there was truth behind your motivations or your feelings, so if there was some level of truth, I'd rather be honest than just popular. I would rather be honest and like disagreed with than popular, but like compromise my belief system or where I stood on a point of view, which is hard to balance because we're in a game where you need followers and you need likes, quote unquote. But I think we're lucky as comedians to have that stage where people will go with you a certain way, you know.
Yeah. And so, I'm laughing at my own question before I even said it. I thought it was very funny when I wrote it.
I can't see the screen, guys.
No,
just let you know.
Yeah. And how did you go from a very honourable profession in a call centre to comedy then?
Okay, nice question. Basically, I worked...
I like the affirmation.
Well, you're really well researched, Luke. If it was the other way around, I might be like trying to wing it, which is not good. So I like.
Where were you born? England. All right, cool. Good research. Nice.
So what's Cambridge like? Do you know what I mean?
Just exactly the way it's reported online.
So it's posh, innit?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. No, I once got mugged, but they just wanted the money for a tailor-made sleeping bag.
Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Pieces of crap. Probably for vegan avocados or something. I don't know.
Vegan, no wasp were harmed in the growing of this veg. That's
they probably can't sleep now, and they probably your people who burglarized you, but who the people who robbed you,
absolutely violated.
Yeah, they probably can't sleep now. They're probably going to make a random a donation to PayPal to support your podcast.
I hope they, maybe.
You love
I need the money. Yeah. The annoying thing about the stereotypes of Cambridge is that often those that live there don't study in Cambridge and don't have the money to study in Cambridge. It's those that come and visit us and then fuck off afterwards and don't benefit the...
What is the racial makeup of Cambridge? Is that random?
What's the percentage of...
is it going to be really... I was like, how many Polish do you have in Cambridge?
I tried to count them once. But it's slightly harder to notice. No, I don't know. It's a very transient population because it's very moving with it's very touristy.
Student as well.
It's tourists and students. So, you get a lot of that in the town centre and things like that. But,
what do you have as in tourist attractions, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know.
The colleges are important.
Okay.
Yes,
people go and look at colleges.
Yeah.
These people, what? That's what I don't get about white people. They go train spotting, they go pigeon watching. What is that? It's good to be one with nature. I'm just player hating because that's not what I do. But I would not go to a town to go and look at a college.
No. Okay. Well,
I will go for the food. We already have nice restaurants.
It's trying to model itself on the trendy places in London.
Because my friend
people
went to
have
Bath.
now big beards and all that. So
is it hipsters?
Yeah. Well, they think they're cool anyway, but
I was working in a call centre and basically it was a posh one where they had some celebrity clients. So I had my monthly appraisal. Do you have them at CAD?
Yeah.
So do your colleagues support you in terms of, do you have conversations with them about your your real job?
You're such an interviewer. So how did you go from a very honourable profession to comedy?
Basically, I was working at a posh call centre and I had my monthly one-to-one with the manager, and being me, I was just like, listen man, I want to write, can you hook me up with a contact, something like that. And then apparently there was a comedian on the Banks magazine, and so he said, I don't know anything, I can't help you, but I can put you in touch with the editor of the magazine and see if the comedian would be willing to help you, which was nice of him. And I really appreciate to the day, because this meeting changed everything, because I did see some websites on how to do it before, but it's not something that I felt brave enough to go and do. So I met with the comedian Deborah Francis White in Camden. Yeah, we went out for dinner and I showed her some material and I said, listen, I really want to be a writer. And she said, these are jokes. Why don't you do stand-up? And I said, nah. But then she literally rang up Lynn Parker, booked me a gig 2 weeks time, and she said, listen, let's just do this. And so I did a rehearsal of 5 minutes set at her flat, and then bish bash bosh, first gig, 70 people liked it. And she kind of in the early stages was really helpful, I would say, in terms of mentoring me, and just being a warm introduction to the very cold. No, that's not. I'm just joking. To the the circuit basically. This is Edinburgh. This is what people do here. This is how you should do this many gigs a week. This is what you do. Da, da, da. So yeah, I was just lucky. Because I did, like I said, I looked at websites before, but I think when you come out of school, if you're not doing drama or performing arts, then for some reason, like public speaking tends to become a phobia or tends to become a bigger deal than it needs to be. But I think once you've done it, you feel great because it's good to conquer your fears as well.
Definitely. I mean, the other thing is, you have to take some credit there. Obviously, it's great to get the opportunity in the first place, but you still have to be good at comedy. And
thank you. I don't know. I think as comedians, we're always critical of what we're doing and how we can get better and strive for better. But I just think, as you probably know, and I think what we hate being told is just enjoy it, which is good advice, but it's really difficult when there's so much going on. It's so nuanced. There's very many layers, and it's your dream, so it counts, man. It really means a lot. So it's easy to tell a comedian enjoy it, and we want to just laugh.
Exactly, yeah, we can only enjoy it if you laugh. And the next 24 hours and maybe a couple of weeks is absolutely dependent on the fact that you laugh. I think we put too much pressure on audiences, actually.
I'm better now, Look, when I started, I won't lie, when there's a whole room, and there was one person giving me a dodgy look, but the whole room liked it, and that one person, I let them psych me out, but now it's funny. Look, I think the more you do it, the less you're fazed by it. And I think that's what it's about. It's about treating it like a job, turning up, switching on, and doing your job, man. Even if you've had a shit day, you'll appreciate that these people have come out and given their time and money, or money. And I really appreciate a full room than an empty room. So I'm going to definitely try and entertain these people. And that's the balance that we need to strike in terms of being professional about it, because I've seen it before where there's some people having a breakdown on stage, and I'm just like, this is not what I want to watch. I
see too much of that.
And I'm on the inside, so I have empathy for mental health, and I have empathy, but listen, I just think have respect as well, isn't it, for people, because it's just, I don't know, it's so self-indulgent, and people, I was told that what we're doing, we have a privilege that people get to hear us and that we have a voice. So I don't want to take that for granted and make my, if there's something funny in it, then fine. But often what I'm talking about is where people are just literally sounding off and feeling sorry for themselves on stage. And that's definitely, a pity party is not comedy.
I can't remember who said it. This might embarrass me because it might have been you, but someone said that they went to a gig and someone just pulled up a chair, sat down and said, you know what, I'm just going to talk about mental health because it's what we should do in comedy. So didn't do any jokes. They just spoke about their mental health and scrapped all jokes. I can't remember who it was who said it.
Oh, wow.
If you listen to it, I'm sorry I didn't remember your name, but I'll plug you in the post-amble or something.
Yeah. The thing is, obviously, it's so subjective. Is that the right word? I think so. So, I think what that person potentially was alluding to is that they want to be operating on different levels, but obviously the first one is to make people laugh, to be funny, right? And then everything else, if it makes people think, if it was risque, if it was topical, if it was sentimental, those are all side things. But the first thing, you have to make people laugh. I love Norm Macdonald, and he said that it's about making everybody laugh at the same time. And then too many people at the minute are, trying to be clever, or I don't want to misquote Norm, but it was just, it's like too sad.
Yeah.
And I do talk about dark things and stuff, but it was a healthy reminder to me that it is primarily, number one, you can't go to the Olympics and not run if you're in the 100 meter sprint. You got to be running. You can't walk, and you can't fucking hop. It's so that is, running is the name of the game. Our one, laughing, is the name of the game.
I think the equivalent with the Olympics would be being a big athlete. Usain Bolt turns up to to the Olympics and then just turns on the games console and plays it on the Xbox.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're kind of doing it, but you're not doing it. I think like someone like James Haycaster, who doesn't do any of mental health stuff in his stand-up, and has obviously built his career on his own sort of persona and all that sort of stuff, and been very successful. Taken him a long time, but he's got there, and he's now used the fact that he has a platform to speak separately about these things on TV programs, on podcasts and all that sort of stuff. And so I think that's the right way to do it. If you have the platform and you have the voice and the reach, then that's more important. Having conversations like this, doing like your podcast that you're doing, separates it from comedy. Yeah, it's funny, it's got funny aspects, we have a good chat. But at the same time, when it comes to comedy, you've been paid 50, 80 quid during the week and a couple of £100 at the weekend, if you're lucky, to make people laugh. And that's what you're there for. People are out on a Saturday night to have a break from things like Brexit, to have a break from all the shit that's been going on in politics and all that stuff, to get away from the things they've been struggling with and just laughing at the things that they're finding annoying. And that's what I think comedy needs to do. And another thing I wanted to touch on, actually, with like your material, is that you do speak about sensitive stuff and you speak graphically about it. You speak about terrorism. You speak about like people's stereotypes with
Asian Muslim women.
Yeah, you can say that. That's fine.
You can say it, bruv. You can say it, bruv. Like, man, that's what I don't like. What's going on now is that even me, like, I'm sometimes sensitive. So, like, for example, with the LGBT crowd, the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. But the first one, you're like, what can I say, gay? And you're not being offensive. You don't want to upset anybody. And that's not what we should be worrying about, because to be honest, they've been through so much in the first place. So I don't think hearing that word would upset them. But I don't want free speech to go away. I think intention, it counts a lot. So you just describing me is not offensive. Do you know what I mean? But it's just such a sensitive time at the moment. And anyway, so I talk about these subjects, as you were saying.
Yes. You do. You talk about these subjects, and I've noticed, like, in your stand-up sometimes, that sometimes people sort of laugh at some of these things straight away, and then they realise they probably shouldn't have laughed, right? And it's the kind of process that happens, but they already laughed, so then they start questioning themselves as to whether they should have laughed or not. But so how much further do you think like society needs to go in the UK to just start appreciating like good comedy? I
will say, first and foremost, as the act with the mic, I'll take full responsibility. So there's been times where it always goes well, and that means I was good, right? And if I try not to attribute it to the audience, so if there is sometimes less laughter or muted laughter, I know I should be doing something different, maybe, or punching, or making them feel able to laugh, right? So 99% I'll try and take responsibility and ownership for it. I would say context matters. So a few years ago when ISIS was around, it was really, really a lot harder than it is now, because I think white people are really good at laughing at themselves, which is brilliant. I think that shows how advanced they are in terms of audiences and appreciating art. But obviously here, they're not laughing at themselves. They're laughing at somebody that they feel is marginalized, which I'm not, but there's empathy there. So it's about creating an environment at the gig where they know I'm okay and it's all good. Like, let's laugh at this because it's weird and it's funny, and you can laugh at yourself. And I don't feel I'm an oppressed minority. I don't feel that I'm a victim of anything, to be honest with you.
Okay. So you mentioned a little while back about the podcast, and so you, in your third series, you're changing the direction slightly to what you've been doing the last couple of series. Yeah,
because the first couple of series it's a really wide remit. So we're talking about what is it like if you don't fit in, and we've talked about that from really good guests in the first couple of series, people at grassroots level who are doing amazing things. And what we learned from that is that a lot of people feel that way. It's not just me and Monty. A lot of people feel it's hard to find belonging. So that's why we thought we'd take the opportunity in series 3 to investigate what belonging actually is in the first place, because I think it's a human experience that there's times and places where you feel more assimilated than others. So, we're looking at food with Ainsley Harriott. That makes him feel amazing. If I eat Indian curry, man, like I always feel at home. Like that seriously makes me feel good. And just, I think it's healing in a way. Like, not that we're trying to kind of heal people's wounds and stuff, but it's nice having these experiences from our points of view and talking to some real celebrity guests. Like, we've had really famous people on before, but this series has just been one after the other. So it's really exciting that we're getting to talk to them authentically in our own voices, which I have to say thanks to the BBC, honestly, because they're really open to us being ourselves, and there's no kind of restrictions on, how we present ourselves. They just want it to be us, which is really, as you can appreciate from a creative level, to be able to have such a free space is really important when you're trying to establish yourself.
And particularly when the BBC have been criticised in the past for having an angle, for driving it down sort of a left side of route. Where
I think it's because it's BBC Sounds.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of separated from your Radio 4s and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's really cool.
I think people should learn that. I mean, now they're getting rid of the Radio iPlayer app, then maybe that would divert a few of the listeners over to BBC Sounds. But
yeah,
available on other platforms as well. But I noticed that they try and get you to really plug the BBC Sounds thing.
Yeah.
So you've had Nish Kumar on the
Yes.
previous episode. How was that? He's a good friend of yours, isn't he?
Yeah, he's so nice. Every time I was in Edinburgh, I'd just bump into him in the street, and he's such a good person in terms of stopping and saying hello and chatting, seeing how you are. I loved having him on the podcast because we were just totally fanzining over comedy. We're chatting about Chris Rock, who I didn't know was his influence and who inspired him, but certainly has inspired me, and obviously so many other comedians. But yeah, Nish is doing really well. So it was nice to talk to somebody at that level. And he's just definitely doing really, he's just come back from America. So it's exciting times for him.
But he's also one of the main things is he's also quite vocal within a politicised world and things. So he's also trying to have an impact on a social level as well as just being a great comedian as well.
Mm-hmm.
So are you allowed to talk about the sort of, you got Ainsley Harriott coming up, any other guests you want to plug?
We got Aher Shah. I really love him. He's so smart because I listened to his com in prep for him coming on, and I watched his show Dots at Edinburgh. I watched Duffer last year, and he's brilliantly smart. So yeah, those are the ones for now. Rose McGowan, Ainsley Harriott, Phil Wang, Phoebe Robinson.
Yeah, I've seen the posts of Phil Wang. He does a good podcast as well, the Bud Pod with
Pierre Novelli.
That's right.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
That's all good. Anytime.
And so how did Edinburgh go? Because I get heartbroken every time I go on Facebook and I see someone's very vocal about how amazing Edinburgh's been for them, and then you got the flip side of things where people have hemorrhaged cash and they got so disheartened by seeing their leaflets in the gutters and stuff like that. So how is it for you?
I would say it was amazing, purely because I'm trying to be more glass half full than empty, because you can always go down that route and focus on what didn't go so well, but we are in the business of funny, and so sometimes to be able to kind of give warmth and laughter, you have to feel good yourself to a degree, although sometimes you can be really funny if things aren't going well. I'm going to admit that. So I would say compared to previous years when I've been up, it wasn't as busy foot flow wise, but it was sufficiently busy, and I got to perform at least 3-4 times a day. So that's not a luxury I have here, where the most I might be able to do is maybe 2 a night. So it's definitely a good boot camp for, brushing up your skills, getting yourself out there. And I watched 60 shows. So not only did I enjoy performing a lot, but I also watched so much and immersed myself in it. So towards the end, I was definitely ready to come back because I was a little bit missing home a little bit, but it was such a brilliant experience, man. And I hadn't been up for a few years, so it definitely was worth the wait.
Well, you supported this year. Was it a paid one?
I did a half. It was a free show with I did a split bill, and it was at Voodoo Rooms, and that has its own kind of reputation and good audience. So honestly, it was brilliant to be part of, and exciting. It was nice. It felt like being a proper comic, which sometimes is hard to feel. But yeah, it was definitely good. I'm gonna hopefully do next year. So are you?
No, I haven't done one yet.
Okay, cool.
I think people place too much value on these things.
Because you travel for gigging anyway, right?
Yeah,
quite a bit,
a
so
lot.
it's fine. So
I saw recently a comedian. I won't mention his name because I don't know how the rest of it's going to go. But like he saved up the money like you would for Edinburgh Fringe, and instead of going to Edinburgh Fringe, he put it into a tour and sort of built a gradual following around the world, actually.
That's brilliant.
And so he did it that way. So he put the 10 grand that he put into that, and then that funded as it went around. So and it took a long time for it to get traction. And I've supported him on a couple of his nights, and some of them no one turned up to some of them and things like that. And he really demoralised them for a little bit. But he said over a longer period of time, it was more valuable than going up.
Definitely. I really admire anybody being entrepreneurial like that. And this business is really about the stamp that you put on it. So there's a fixed model, but I had a conversation with Guz Khan a few years ago, and he said, I don't need to do the Fringe because you don't have to. Like, if you look at Mo Gilligan with the Instagram and stuff, like, if you're able to be viable and credible yourself, it's there for the taking. And then, the kind of commissioners and the channels and the producers will follow if you're doing something successful. So I admire the balls of the guy because it does take a lot, I think.
Yeah, putting the money in before you got backing from like an agent or promoters or management and all that sort of stuff it's a big risk.
And we're going to, for the podcast, we're doing a crossover episode with this French podcast called Kiefer to Race. Okay. And it's a similar theme to ours. That's why we're doing the crossover. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can do a gig in Paris.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that'll be next month. So that'll be my first place out of London, well, out of the UK, I should say, performing. And I definitely want to do more. So I've asked a few places in Amsterdam. So I definitely think that guy's onto something in terms of building a following, because especially with podcasts and with social media, you don't need to have a kind of a base. The world can be your base, right?
Mm-hmm. If you've done it right, I mean, one of the like the algorithm for it is to be present in an area for X amount of time, say 3 months, for example. Go to the open mics, do the little the new material nights and all that sort of stuff, and be regular and be noticed and be just be sort of a staple in that area. Do different material, try stuff, and then go on the local radios. And then because you've got that kind of local following, they know your name. Then you can book out one of the bigger venues and sell tickets. And I think that's the way to do it. It just takes time and it does take money. And if you don't do well in certain ones, then you may not be able to go back to that one. But it's all a risk. It's a difficult game.
I think having that British tag helps. You know what I mean? I've heard of a lot of acts going out, and I think that must stand them in good stead just to say they're from London or from the UK. But I wonder if it is as long as 3 months, how taxing that can be on their personal life, just in terms of making a living, but also basic things like holding down a relationship, because it's asking a lot of your partner unless you're taking them with you, which is again a cost. So are you seeing somebody?
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So it's it is true. Yeah. I mean, they say that if you're in a relationship before you start comedy, then you've got no chance, because if you make this change after you've set the bar, then there's no way of like. I
would have thought it'd be the opposite. I would have thought that if you find someone before you became whoever, a big person, then they will. If they knew you before that. Whereas I think if you are already fucking famous, and can I swear, if you get really famous and then you get somebody who's really bought into your persona as opposed to you, that would be hard to hold down.
Yeah, I think what I mean is the.
I know what you mean. You mean the logistics of your relationship, like the time that you give them. But it depends on their character, I think, because if they know you and they know the effect that comedy has on you in terms of giving and fulfilling and, how it makes you feel, it's not a fucking choice, man. I don't think we choose to be comedians. I don't think we choose to be comedians. I think comedy chooses us.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get Tony, the editor, for this to just cut this little soundbite out.
Okay.
And then we can release that anywhere. And at any point, so if anyone ever needs a comment on a relationship, could just use this little bit that Sadia has just said. Great, cheers for that. I'll just at that point, that's good. So yeah, I like, but then I think that having a relationship throughout that brings you back down to earth, because the other thing is that you go from what's it? Like you go to a gig and then you get a call about having to buy ingredients for like a spaghetti bolognese, and you're like, Jesus, I'm about to go on stage and now I need to go and buy mince and milk.
So you
and
mean
bread.
the normality?
Yeah, the normality is great because it brings you back down to earth.
Grounded.
It's a little bit annoying when just before you're about to go on stage and you go on there thinking about. So I've got a whole set now about trying to remember a shopping list.
That's
and they're
funny.
recording a set. I'm saying like I record my sets not just because I have to record my sets to listen to myself, but I need to remember to buy milk, bread, cheese, all that sort of stuff. And I just go into a rant about that. And then keep referring back to this recording that's always running through the thing.
Do you find that sometimes the bad things in life are when you're a better comedian versus things going really well?
Bad things in your life, what do you mean?
Like if things are going bad, so you're going through like either if you're single or if you're broke or something bad's happened, like you're being evicted, like those bad things are really good for comedy because you're really raw and you've got like that thing to kind of like expel. Whereas if you're really happy, sometimes that's not the best frame of mind for a comedian because you're so happy. I
guess so. Yeah, if you come across or visibly privileged, it doesn't really work for British comedy because you have to be the butt of the joke.
Self-deprecating.
You know? Yeah. Well, you don't have to be. Like you can be a joke guy, or person. Like you can be someone like Mark Simmons, who's really good at one-liners, and he has no kind of like mood to it. He's just got the way he delivers his jokes and his beats and all that, and that worked. That's fine. But when you're telling stories, you know. It's hard to talk about my friend who tripped over and hurt himself because then you're laughing at somebody.
Yes.
Whereas I tripped over and hurt myself and this is what happened because of this. And
So how do you balance your mental health, or shall I say, what do you do when you're not doing stand-up?
Me, I just live a normal life. I do radio.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's bring this on to more you because I get uncomfortable when I'm talking about myself.
Sorry, I'm just interested.
No, it's cool.
It feels like it's comedian stuff, right?
Yeah, it's deep, man. I'm not going to try and make it. I'm not going to ask you if you're happy at the end. It's fine.
Thank God. Oh my God, I'm not prepared for that.
Are you happy?
Don't ask me that. Are you going to ask me that? Are you really asking me that?
I'm not going to ask you that because it's Stu's thing.
What I think with that question is, to be honest, whenever I'm happy, something bad happens to bring me down. So I never want to say it to jinx it.
No, okay. Are you superstitious like that?
It's not fucking superstition. It's real life. When things are going all right, as soon as you're like, oh, that's really good, something will bring you down. Yeah. It's a horrible question.
So you've been going for like 9 years now, nearly 10 years. So,
thank you.
Sorry, is that
No.
How much has your material changed over that time?
Good question. Thank you. I hate you for it. To be honest with you, I hate to use this hacky phrase, but it's like finding your voice. Mm-hmm. So I look back at my old stuff and it was fine. I think it's just speaking of the time. So I used to work in a call center. I did stuff on that. But then what I felt was weird is that I didn't like it when it worked because I felt it was a bit hacky. I don't think it was. Maybe I was too harsh. But I didn't have the persona that made sense, that tied it all together, or the voice, if you want to use that term. So all the way years through, I feel now that I know my point of view. So it's easy to hang things on that. Whereas as opposed to just doing material on observations, now I understand my worldview. And so it's contextualized a bit more. So I'm, a bit of a horny, frustrated Muslim and British person. This sounds really weird, sorry. What's my persona? My persona, I like to call out bullshit if something don't make sense to me. I don't know everything, and I love dick, and that's and I know that now. But when you're starting comedy, there's an element of just needing to be good enough to get the gigs and to kind of do your sets and be comfortable and get all the stage technique in. But now it's good that you kind of know the voice is easier to write for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Okay. So, when do you draw attention to the things that are instantly obvious about you straight away?
No, I feel less of a need to. At the beginning, I did. When I started stand up, I had a routine about how the headscarf is like you know, when you're doing karate and you get different belts. So it's like, you know, we wear the orange one when we're basic, and then the black one is like when we're ninjas and like, so, but I don't feel like I need to talk about it as much. But I sometimes do, because a lot of people might not be familiar with my work, so it's not new for them, even though I'm comfortable doing a set that completely doesn't touch on it. I feel sometimes it helps. So you have to gauge it, because sometimes you don't want to bore yourself, but also you don't want to do a disservice to the audience. So if I'm doing a really good bit that doesn't touch on it, then it's fine if I'm really happy with a good bit. But if I was doing a new bit and they need something, it might not necessarily be about appearance. It could be, it's just balancing so that they have a good experience and they enjoy the show. But it's so commonplace now versus when I started. A lot of people are wearing the headscarf, and so there's a lot more understanding of it as well.
Okay,
I think,
I see,
yeah, it's not as rare as it used to be. Like when I was growing up in school, nobody wore it. At the school I went to, if there was, it was really small amounts. And it's so, like, there's fashion hijabis now on YouTube, there's vloggers, there's Instagram hijabis. So to be honest, I don't even know, you know, like, don't really feel that I relate to a lot of them, because I never used to wear it for fashion purpose as well. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think it's become a bit hack though now? That if there is a resurgence of you know, more people speaking about it, that it's actually become harder for you?
That's a good point. It's more that when I wore it, this is going to sound really weird, but I think I liked that I was different, and now I don't have that anymore. So it's become very normalized, which I know a lot of people think that you should be happy about, but I didn't wear it for anybody's satisfaction or for how anybody else felt about it. So I mean, if it makes people feel better because there's more of us, then that's good. But, you know, I always try and be unique and original in the way I talk about it. So I wouldn't not talk about it if I had a good thing to say. But to say something that's too obvious or predictable, I wouldn't just talk about it just for the sake of talking about it. I only want to talk about it if what I'm saying is going to make someone laugh or that they've not heard before.
And that's become like to refine your material to make sure that you've got the jokes in there, you've got the laughs in there. It's not just about just talking for an hour.
Exactly. It's not a TED talk. I'm not here to help. Like you said, it's a different thing to the podcast. Stand-up is to make people laugh. So if they want to talk about it, I don't think people are that curious about hijab anymore, to be honest with you. So
okay, that does bring me on to a really good bit, and is completely stealing your stuff. What you have been recognised in the podcasting world, or at least the online world, is the frequently asked questions that you get about being a British Asian Muslim, shall I say.
Yeah.
So what questions are still grinding on you?
I have to be so honest with you, nobody asks me any questions anymore.
Really?
So this series, our new question is including, we still ask for FAQs, but we're asking people, what does home mean for them?
Okay.
So if I'm lucky, you might tell me. But these are more old questions that I used to get, but I don't really get asked anymore, because sometimes when I was at the Fringe, I was a bit coy or playful, and I was like, have you got any questions you'd like to ask a Muslim? And nobody really does. So that's why I say people aren't that hijab curious, because I don't know, man, to be honest with you, pre-terrorism, there were a lot of questions. They were like, when is you going to get your arranged marriage? Can you cook? You know, what's BO? Those type of questions. And then terrorism came along, and I think it made people, it was divisive. And so there was all this tension, because there was just unspoken tension about, like, whose side are you on? Are you British more than you're something else? So, and then now we've come to a far, I think, easier time where it's less tense, but not so many questions.
That's good.
Yeah.
So since you've been doing the podcast, it's grown, since you've been in comedy at least, it's grown, and you get asked less and less. So let me flip that then. There's a little prelude to your new series. What does home mean to you?
Oh, man. Okay. Home means feeling comfortable, feeling safe, having good food, my boyfriend, music, Amy Winehouse, sometimes swimming, which is really random. But just, I think home means not having to explain yourself and feeling feeling good, like where you are. So you don't have to be like watching over your back or feeling like you're an outsider, even though I think as comedians we're a bit outsider-ish anyway, but just feeling like you're going to be okay for the period of time that you're there. Does that make any sense?
No, it makes like so much sense. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, Sadia.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And good luck. And where can people find you?
Instagram and Twitter at Sadia_Azmat_. And do subscribe to No Country for Young Women BBC Sounds, please. And holler at me if you've got any things you want to ask a Muslim. I'm joking. No, just holler at me if you want it. Or come to our gigs.
Yeah, that's
It'd be great if you see us.
Have you got a website? I'll put it in the show notes.
SadiaAzmat.com, but definitely Twitter and Instagram. I always retweet the gigs and stuff like on there, so that's better. That's more updated than the website.
So that was Sadia Azmat. What an amazing conversation that was. I really enjoyed hanging out with her. She's a great comedian, and her podcast, No Country for Young Women, is absolutely brilliant. All the information of how you can follow her and go along to some of her gigs are going to be in the show notes, so definitely go and check those out. Don't forget that if you go over to my website, lukeanthonycomedy.co.uk, there's a donate button there. You can donate to the podcast for the running costs. And if you're feeling generous, you could give this podcast a nice 5-star rating. It really helps get it up in the rankings and heard by more people. That really, really helps. But that's it from me. Speak to you soon.